Hey Severance fans, Jerry Williams, aka Greater Sapien here, breaking down Season 2, Episode 2 of Severance. A warning that there will be spoilers as I break down the story beats quickly and give my thoughts on the character moments in the episode. Episode 2 starts the same way Episode 1 did, with a recap of the last words of the MDR team before they were switched back to their outie selves. In the last episode, all we saw was what was experienced by the innie personas, but this episode takes place from the point of view of the outies. We see Mark wake up in the middle of the dinner party, holding his wedding photo and having no idea what recently happened. We see Helena have a quick exchange with her father, and we see that there's no compassion between them whatsoever. Dylan, who had recently been tackled by Mr. Milchick, is walking out of the building, not knowing why he was injured. But we don't see what happened with Irving when he woke up. So Milchick is tasked with handling the rebellious employees, and Helena goes to talk to Miss Cobell. And I want to point out the great job that Britt Lauer, the actress who plays Helena, is doing, because she holds herself as a completely different person compared to Helly. Helly has a very loose walk, a very comfortable, casual stride, while Helena is very stiff in her demeanor and her stride. There's very little shimmy in that walk. She offers Miss Cobell a promotion, an apology, and very warm language in their conversation, but there is absolutely no warmth in her eyes whatsoever. She does not care. Miss Cobell knows that it's all BS, and she says she'll think about taking the promotion. Milchick goes to see Irving to get information from him, but I get the sense that Irving in the outside world is a bit of a badass, and he's not giving up any information. There's a reason why we didn't see what happened to him when he woke up. They're holding on to that for a later reveal, I think. Did he realize where he was because he had already known Bert's location? He likely knows precisely how he got there. And so when Milchick shows up, he knows the face of an op when he sees one, and he's not talking. Milchick then fires Irving. Milchick goes to Dylan and tells him that he got in a fight at work and was the instigator, so he's fired. Dylan is shook. He obviously needs this job and doesn't know what he's going to do without it. So now we know that everything Milchick said in episode 1 was a lie. He told Mark that his teammates had refused to come back to work. Obviously, that's not true. I mean, we figured it wasn't true given what happened in episode 1, but this is a confirmation. Meanwhile, Helena makes a PR video explaining that she was drunk and apologizes for everything she said. There's one thing you can say about these Lumen people. They work quickly. It's still the same night, and Helena has already cut a PR video. Milchick is already visiting everyone and cleaning up the mess the best he can. And it's been, what, like 2 hours? We then get the new intro to the series, which is another great sequence. While the first season had an opening sequence that was completely and totally focused on Mark, this one starts with Mark, as it should, but then it shows that the story has gone beyond Mark's story and encompasses all the members of the MDR team. And so we see them, and we also have Miss Cobell as this ominous figure as well. It really expands upon the first season's opening credits to show that the story is much bigger now. And the little Easter eggs in the new intro are interesting. The little babies crawling around, the little Kier boss baby. Are they cloning people? Have they cloned people and they're now trying to clone Kier? Is macro data refinement editing genomes? Only time will tell. Then we see Mark, who is still confused by what happened after he's been told about everything he said. They have yet to put a real connection between Mark saying, "She's alive," just before he woke up, and the wedding photo that he's holding. He's completely unable to make a possible connection between those, and he thinks that it must have been talking about the baby who had been misplaced last episode. Devin, his sister, however, has an inkling that it's more than that, and there might be some connection to his wife, Gemma. Milchick comes and does not fire Mark, however, for reasons we don't quite understand at this point. Milchick blames everything on Miss Cobell, which is something you get to do when you weren't in charge. He's in charge now. Mark is not sure about going back. We see Helena reviewing footage of Mark and Helly before they ventured out last season, and she sees that there is a romantic relationship between the two of them. And I really get the sense that Helena has no one. She has no real passion in her and is deeply conflicted by what she sees in Helly. Dylan immediately tries to find work the next day, but is rejected due to the fact that he was severed. There's a tremendous amount of disdain toward his severed status coming from the employer he spoke to. We also start to see a little bit more of what kind of person Irving is as he leaves his apartment and goes to a payphone and makes a call to someone and mentions that his innie got his message. I'm going to have to circle back and see what clues were left in earlier scenes with Irving. And when he leaves the payphone, we see Bert G. sitting in a car in the dark watching Irving. And it's Christopher Walken, so it's nearly impossible to read what's going on in his eyes. Is it hatred because this is a person that he had seen banging on his door, or are they working together in cahoots and he's just checking in on him? Will there be a scene that we flash back to that shows Bert and Irving, Bert and Ernie, talking right after this phone call? Who knows? The mystery deepens. Milchick comes to Mark with a fruit basket, a pay increase, and a deep understanding of Mark's psychological profile to try to get him to come back to work. Why is it so important to come back to work? We don't know. But it tentatively seems to work as Mark hesitantly goes back to work the following Monday. So that whole thing about it being 5 months is completely blown out of the water. It's been 4 working days. And here's where we find out why Mark has to go back to work, as Helena says they need Mark back and working at least long enough to complete Cold Harbor. Now, Cold Harbor was the name of the file that he was working on at the end of the last episode, and we saw that there was some connection between that file and Miss Casey, aka his wife Gemma. There's something about that file that's really important, and there's something special about Mark, maybe in relation to the file, that makes it necessary for him to be there and for him to do the completion. I'm wondering if this is connected to the sense I got the last episode that the numbers he was looking at were good feeling numbers. If there's some positive emotional connection between him and the file and that file and his wife Gemma that makes him uniquely suited to do whatever refinement is necessary to complete the file. We also know that Mark and the original MDR team are a particularly good set of refiners. In episode 1, Mark's new team member mentioned that his last team had never made quota a single time, not once. And we learn that when Mark sent his message to the board, they did hear him, and there's something so important about Mark and Cold Harbor that they went and unfired his team to bring them back, and even made Helena go back as Helly, even though she seems emotionally reluctant to do so, in order to complete the refinement of that file. Now, last episode, I speculated on the possibility of Helly just being Helena in disguise. I would find that problematic now. Since we know it's only been a few days, I would find it far less believable that Helena could fake a rapport with her teammates so easily in such a short period of time. And lastly, Mark comes across Miss Cobell packing her car to leave and confronts her about what she was up to. He presses and finally gets an inkling to ask if it has something to do with his wife. I don't think she was prepared for that, and her inner conflict betrays her. She lets out a primal scream and nearly runs Mark down as she drives away. Mark was unconvinced by his sister, but this encounter with Cobell turns him. He knows something's up now. End of episode. Okay, there was a lot in this episode when it comes to the overall mystery, but I want to talk about what really drives this show for me, the characters and the performances. We get some great moments for all the characters, some of whom we've never seen outside of the severed floor. First, Mark. Mark goes through a lot in this episode. We remember back in the finale of season 1, Mark had confessed that he was seriously considering leaving Lumen just before his innie persona was released. He then wakes up, and his sister is heavily hinting that she thinks Gemma could be alive and maybe he should go back, which to him is the cruelest of things to say. Outie Mark has been in a dark place for a while, but has always had a casual comfort with his sister. But when she presses the Gemma issue, he claps back kind of hard, showing how much he's still wounded by Gemma's death. And when Milchick comes at him, telling him that his innie was brave, has found love, and that feeling will eventually make its way to his outie self, you can see the conflict in him. It's a great performance there. Another character that had some great moments is Dylan. We're starting to see that there's an interesting correlation between the outies and the innies. Dylan on the outside is very unlike Dylan on the inside. Outie Dylan is very insecure, very unsure of who he is and what he wants. He's not a go-getter. He's passive in a way. He's just looking to be secure. Dylan on the inside is his own biggest fan. He's the shit, fuck a humble brag. He wants perks. He wants people to see his achievements. But when Outie Dylan has the job interview, we can see a spark of innie Dylan. He's done some research on the door industry beforehand. He thinks quickly in the moment. Innie Dylan is in there, and you can see it in the performance. Oh, and a nice nod to Monsters, Inc. with the hanging doors being conveyed around. That's one. Speaking of nods, we also see that Milchick rides a sweet motorcycle, and the cinematographer shoots him riding from place to place like he's the goddamn Dark Knight. Yep, he's a badass. So at the end of this episode, we have more background, but the characters have not experienced more, so we are essentially in the same spot as the last episode. So I wouldn't even really try to speculate on what would happen next since I don't have more information. I'm hoping we don't have to wait too long before we see Bert G again. The fact that he was watching Irving says that there's more to him than the jubilant old man we saw at the end of season 1. I have a feeling we won't see Colbell for a couple episodes though, but she'll be back. It's Patricia Arquette for one. You don't just let that talent go away. And 2, did you see the opening credits? Nothing says important part of the storyline like that does. Okay, that's it for me. Until next time, peace.